Hey guys, you through to MSI Overclock Academy and Team Great Britain, and this is part 2 of the module, and what we're going to be doing this evening is looking at how to prep a motherboard for sub-zero benching. Okay, there are a couple of things we're going to do first. Quickly going to explain the difference between some stuff, and then we're going to get right to it. Okay. The reason why we prep a board is very simple. We don't want hardware to die. We don't want the CPUs to die. We don't want the motherboards to die. We don't want graphics cards. We don't want RAM. Basically, we don't want any kind of hardware whatsoever to die. Okay, stuff's expensive. It's a hassle. It stops the benching. Even if you've got spare, you've got to stop. You've got to start all over. It's a pain. It's a real pain. So we just don't want to do it. Okay, but there are a couple of things that make it a little easier to understand what it is we're doing. Now, the big thing is that we are prepping for two different things. Okay, we prep for condensation and we prep for insulation. Okay, what's the difference? Well, condensation is the process of changing from a gaseous to a liquid state or a solid state. Simply put, when something's cold, you have a dew effect. Okay. So if it's colder than the ambient and there's water vapor in the air, as there most probably always is water vapor in the air, you get condensation, those little dew-like droplets things. You see it on a beer glass. I wish I had a beer glass now, I'd show you. Basically, that's it. Okay. In thermal insulation, what that is, it's also separate. It means to separate, to detach, to isolate. Okay. So you're separating one body of material from another. And the reason you do that is to prevent the transfer of heat, or, in our case, often to prevent the transfer of cold. Okay. Now, why that's vaguely relevant is because some of the materials that we use, like eraser, for example, that pretty much acts as a conduit for cold. Okay, let's see if you can see that properly. Oh, it's upside down, man. Alright, that's what it looks like in a big box. And this is a razor, artist kneadable putty eraser. This is what it looks like once you've opened it. Okay, so eraser is a really good conduit of cold, and sometimes you have VRMs or you have memory that you don't want to have cold, or maybe you've got some components on your board. Often in graphics cards particularly, the memory doesn't like getting colder than a certain temperature. That's when a eraser can be a bit of a problem. Other times you actually use your eraser to transport the cold. So if you're benching 775, for example, hey, then it's worthwhile, because I used to stack it up against the North Bridge, and it used to help with my overclocks, especially on my Rex board. But let's not digress. Let's get back onto the whole thing. Okay, so what we're doing is, first of all, we're going to prep talking about condensation. Okay, now there are lots of ways of doing this. Okay, there's no one perfect way, there's no optimal way. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you've got at hand, use it. Okay, it's no big deal. But there are a number of considerations that you have to bear in mind when you prepare your board. Okay, now the big one is, are you going to sell the board afterwards? Now, for a lot of us, we can't afford to keep the boards forever. We actually have to move them on. So we use the board, we use the CPU. When we finish, so we can afford our hobby, we've got to sell it to buy the next generation. Okay, so that fact determines, in many cases, how and what you're going to use to prep your board. Now, my personal favorite is Common or Garden petroleum jelly, Vaseline, bum lube, whatever you want to call it. I use a little paintbrush, and I really stick it on pretty thickly onto the motherboard. Let me show you. See, by the PCI sockets, right there, I've just dabbed it in, really put it in thick. Don't play around with it. I just gunk it in, and it's quite easy to do. Just slop it on, and when you've done that, okay, I'll take my heat gun. Okay, you're going to get a bit of noise now. Just like that, I melt it and I slop it around and I flow it underneath the components. Now the socket area, okay, the socket area has already been done. So just take a look. Okay, I'll hold it steady. Okay, that socket area has already been done. I did this in Cambridge where we had our meet. And big thanks to all the sponsors who helped out there, MSI, Cooler Master, and G-Skill for the RAM. And of course, let's not forget the box.co.uk. They were very, very generous, and without them, we would have really got stuck. So it just looks tidy if you do it this way. Now, I love using Vaseline on motherboards because when I'm finished, it's real easy to clean it up. I just take my hot air gun or hairdryer even, and I blow it all down off the edge, and basically that gets the bulk of it off. And then it's a simple matter with another paintbrush and a little bit of electronic cleaner, and I get the rest off, and it's as good as new. So that's one of the things that I really like doing, because there's no way that moisture is now going to get onto the components, get underneath bits and pieces onto the exposed wire, because they are all covered and coated with Vaseline. However, Vaseline and eraser don't play nicely together. Okay, that is not a good combination. That is a lose-lose combination. It does something to the eraser and it turns it into this disgusting sticky, stringy stuff that it's just not worth doing. So don't mix eraser and Vaseline if you can. A little bit of eraser around the socket to seal the CPU, that's fine, but other than that, don't touch it, don't mix them. What you do want to use is a lot of ubiquitous blue paper towels. Right, this is like a bench's really good friend. You want to have lots of the stuff. You get different kinds. I like the workshop towels as opposed to the cheaper hand cleaning towels that you can pick up. They cost a little bit more, but I find I use a lot less, so I think. But what's often also used is other coatings. Okay, so Vaseline is a kind of removable coating, but you get permanent coatings. Liquid electrical tape, what most guys on the forums call LET, and it's quite expensive. You're paying about £14 for 4 fluid ounces, or you can buy directly from the manufacturers, and that's what I do. So I get a hold of 750ml tins of the stuff from Plastidip, and it costs me about £16 including shipping, and I absolutely coat motherboards and graphics cards particularly in this stuff. But then again, while you can remove it, and if you put it on thick enough, it's quite easy to remove, it's going to leave some marks behind. You're going to see where the Plastidip has been, the LET has been, and there's some folks that might take umbrage to having a motherboard with all the stuff on it, so it's up to you. I've used crazy putty in the past. I've used all sorts of things, and what I now use almost exclusively is Vaseline and lots of paper towels. That works the best for me. Doesn't mess with the boards, makes them a little bit sticky, but so what, the stuff's frozen anyway. And so that's my favorite. Eraser, of course, is very popular, and what we're going to do is we are going to prep a board quickly using eraser. So I can show you, just swapped out boards. Let's go to the different camera. Right, what I'm using is an MSI X99S Gaming 7 motherboard, and I will now, using the eraser, I'm going to prep one side to give you an idea on how to do it. One of the things I really like about the MSI motherboards is they have some of the cleanest socket areas you can imagine. And by clean, I mean there aren't all sorts of things sticking up in the way, causing problems when you prep it for Sub-Zero. You notice I've got the CPU in. There's a reason for that. Because of the manner in which I prep, I'm only going to be doing the one side. It seals the lever in. I want that closed. I want that covered. I don't want that exposed. As you can see here, I actually push the eraser right in so that the area around the socket itself is completely sealed. With prolonged LN2 sessions and with this platform, once you've done your basic 1 or 2 2D benchmarks, the multi-core ones, you're going to be basically using lots of video cards. You're going to be busy for quite some time benching. As those of you that have started your LN2 journey have worked out, nothing simple when you're benching LN2. Stuff that works like a charm every time and time again, on air or on water, it don't work the same as easy when you're using LN2. So as you can see, doing this rather quickly, it's not particularly difficult to do. I just move it around, push the stuff into space. I like to have a fairly even distribution of eraser. Some of the guys even push a razor into the first socket of the memory slot. They don't really use that one. I tend not to, mainly because I do use a lot of these boards for something else afterwards, either builds for my kids, friends, or basically I collect a lot of boards. There are always folks a couple of months down the line that got into benching late or haven't used a particular platform that would like to have a play. And if you've got the boards, Team Great Britain's all about sharing. So we've got a couple of motherboards that we make available to guys, and as long as they stay within the rules of HSpot with regards to hardware sharing, they're welcome to use them. Motherboards are not an issue. CPUs are not an issue if you're benching graphics, but obviously you can't submit scores if you're not the owner of that CPU. So, you know, common sense, but it's all about sharing and it's all about learning in Team Great Britain. So let me see if I can get a better shot of this. Let's switch to camera number 1 and let's hold it up. Okay, so right, whoa, what we have there, okay, can you see? I've just done half of the CPU. Now all it is, I've made it smooth, I've pushed it into all the nooks and crannies, and that will now be completely watertight. And like I said, the only downside to this stuff is it is going to distribute the cold. Now once you've done that, and even if you go on the route of the Vaseline, I still like making little pads out of the toweling. Just dial the light down a little bit so you can see a bit better. Okay, so what I do is I put it on and then I press hard over the CPU area, and it leaves an imprint on the towel, and that's what I use then to cut out using either a pair of scissors or a sharp blade and Stanley knife, and I push that onto the eraser. It sticks nice, and I just leave it's like a gasket, an extra layer of protection around the CPU area. And obviously when doing so, you've already got your threaded bar in, and you make your gasket and you put it on, and then you would mount your CPU pot onto that. So that's the one way of doing it, using eraser. I quite like eraser for some applications, but not for others. As I mentioned, it can and often does transmit and carry the cold quite effectively, which is one of the reasons why I don't use it as much. Now, like I said, you can do other things as well. You can use coatings, nail varnish is one, but there are also semi-solid materials that are used. I've just mentioned the eraser, that's one, and there's another one that's like it's crazy putty, which I've used for a while, but it gets a bit out of hand. Basically what it is, you put the stuff on the board and you just leave it and it levels out by itself. It's completely liquid and it just levels out and it covers everything. But when you're storing your board, if your board is stored at an angle, it will flow down to that angle. So unless you're on your boards are stored perfectly level, it can get a bit messy. So I stopped using it at all. But something else which is really handy to use is solid materials like Armorflex and stuff like that. What I've got here today is a roll of Armorflex. Okay, you can buy this stuff. This one comes in 15-meter rolls. This is 3mm thick. It's got an adhesive back to it. What I would often do is actually use the gasket, make the gasket of the nice thick paper towels that I use with the Armorflex. Put 2 or 3 layers on it, especially on the back of graphics cards. I find that works really, really well. And I use that again in a combination of Vaseline and paper towel and the Armorflex. So you make your gasket across thing, you cut it out of shape. That's probably just a little bit shorter than that. And then you put your layers of tape across, 1 or 2 layers depending on you, and you've coated it heavily with Vaseline over here. You put it against there and you press it into it. And I just use a couple of elastic bands across the side to hold it in place, and that's pretty much good enough. It keeps enough of the condensation away, and the cold tends to be managed. It acts as a barrier, so you don't pick up as much ice in a shorter session. But of course, look guys, when you're doing long sessions, you are going to pick up condensation. You've got no choice in the matter. This is a little lightning card that is looking for a CPU pot. You can also use far thicker insulation, like for example the sheeting of closed cell. Again, Armorflex is a good brand, but there are other makes as well. You can use that, cut it to shape, cut out the little inserts, pretty much make a purpose-built gasket. How you do it is you take the sheet, you cut it out to the sides, let's say the socket or the graphics card that you want to use, press it against it, and the indentation will show, and then just quickly either mark it with a pen or take a craft knife or something with a very, I use a actual surgeon's blade. You can buy them from Amazon, and I just use that to cut the little squares, the little bits and pieces that I want to have that stick out of the board, stick out of the graphics card, and I fit it perfectly. You can use those over and over again. 8-Pack uses them. I've seen him with some that he's had for years and years and years. They are so coated with Vaseline at the moment that I don't think, even if you chuck them into a barrel of water, that they'd get wet at all. They just totally reusable over and over. They're brilliant. Now, the next session we're going to do is going to be on pot mounting and insulation of pot. It's pretty much the same. It's very simple, same as if you were doing your CPU with an air or water cooling. The only difference, of course, is that you want to create as much of an airtight socket area. So you want to create a couple of gaskets, either a few layers of tissue or toweling, or you want to have some of the neoprene. I like neoprene. I buy it from Tesco's. Cost me £3.50 for the camping mats. That does the trick perfectly. It's a lot cheaper than Armorflex. The 1-inch Armorflex that I took to the show in Cambridge cost £96 for 3 meters by 1 meter sheet. It's very good, but you pay for it. It's much cheaper just to, buy one of those blue or yellow camping mats, cut it up. Doesn't cost you anything, you don't feel guilty about it, and it really works. If you've got any questions, ask in the comment section. and we'll get back to you. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Stand by for module number 3. We will see you soon. Take care.